Gourmet number 4, Spike the Punch.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and inspiring tale of Toriko. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with really Toriko being tasked with going into the lab. IGO is what I was trying to say while I was saying IGO. They've tasked him with retrieving the rainbow fruit. Troll Kongs, though, have decided to go and take their, basically make a nest right by this fruit, by this tree. And so that's where things left off. That's where things, pick up over here. And we wind up seeing the first couple of pages. It's kind of cool because at IGO's actual lab, and these are like these they're like these really large habitat type labs that they do, and what they do really essentially, and they explain, is that it's almost like a huge wildlife habitat, right, with walls and everything else around it. But they allow all these different types of animals and plants and everything else that they're engineering, growing, whatever in there, to pretty much just kind of interact, and it gives them the sense of freedom in just basically a larger cage is what it is, and that's what they explain. So, but ultimately, the first couple of pages is us seeing at that actual lab area a couple of the guards talking about there's a giant troll Kong, and it's a stuffed one, one that's obviously been killed. And these things, I don't know, they look like they're all of 15, 20 feet tall, 4 arms, giant fangs, and these guys are going back and forth, and one of them's like, man, I wouldn't want to go up against one of those with a machine gun. And another one's like, are you kidding? It took out a tank. I wouldn't want to go up against one with a missile launcher, And because one of these things just took out a tank like it was nothing. So we then go and we see Johannes driving like a limo, and in the back of it we've got Toriko and Komatsu, and Toriko's talking about he's sitting there and he's got this big pot of something and he's scooping out, and he's like, oh, I told Tom I'd cut him in on the rainbow fruit, and he gave me 100 kilos of of golden caviar, right? And he's like, oh, it just tastes so good. I can't believe the taste changes when they pop in your mouth. And I personally have never eaten caviar. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I have when I've had sushi a couple of times. They put some on the sushi. So, and there's really nothing wrong with it in my mind. But I'm kind of a try almost anything once type of person at least. So, but it's just comical how he's going on and on about it. And then there's this little weird exchange about Johannes is driving, right? And Komatsu is like, and I don't know if this is like a reference to like a gay reference or something. I'm not really sure, because Komatsu is like, oh, and could you not drive sitting like that or whatever, And then Toriko starts messing with him. He's like, oh yeah, it's real provocative. Maybe you want to write a love letter before we go. And then Komatsu's like, Toriko, stop messing with me like that. So I really didn't know what to get from that reference, or maybe I'm looking too much into it, but it just seemed kind of odd to just come out of nowhere. So I don't know if Toriko was just kind of giving him, just ribbing him a little bit because he's, I don't know, just maybe Komatsu's a little more feminine to Toriko, because Toriko's this big manly, type of guy that just takes things out and punches them and breaks things and, just lights tree branches for cigars and stuff like that, which I still find very funny. So anyway, so they wind up going and approaching and getting to the actual, the lab number 8 or whatever it is. And they explain a little bit, they get out there and it's kind of like, there's guards standing outside. There's this huge door. I mean, it just reminds you of something that would hold like King Kong or something, And the guards are talking to him, and they're, oh, yeah, we're glad you're here. And Toriko is basically greeted as like this celebrity rock star wherever he goes, obviously for his skills, and he's known the world over, or at least so far from what we can see, the world over. So he goes and winds up talking to him, and he goes, hey, listen, okay, that's great, open up the door. And this is where we get a little bit of an explanation about the actual place and everything else, and how, it's basically like a larger, preserve to keep, these animals and things in captivity, but to make them feel more like they're in a natural habitat, as opposed to just being in like a cage, And then, and we found out, too, in the last ones, these troll Kongs, in the last chapter, these troll Kongs were, like, genetically engineered. So they were basically created by IGO. And I don't know what for. I don't know if they were adapted after real-life species that maybe went extinct, or if it was just, like, a genetic mutation or what. But IGO apparently is fucking around with the, but playing God, doing some things like that. So we wind up getting, then we go in, and he says, okay, well, open up the doors, and they're like, no, sir, we can't. And somebody had said that, they spotted a troll Kong about 5 or 10 minutes ago near the gate, right? And then Toriko says, yeah, open up the gate. And they said, no, we can't, sir. Regulations say that if there is, that's breaking the rules. The regulations say that if there is an animal, a creature that is a capture class above capture level 5, and we know these troll Kongs are a capture level 9, I believe, if I remember correctly, that if they're within 5 kilometers, it says 5 kilometers. At first I thought it was 5 meters, because I figured that makes sense. If they're like 15, 20 feet, close to the door, then you don't want to open the door up because they could charge. But this says 5 kilometers, which is like 3.1 miles. So these habitats are obviously huge. And I guess there's a trench that's in between. When you open up the door, there's a trench that these things supposedly can't get across or whatever, but it's a safety precaution. So Toriko goes and he's just like, okay. And they wound up hearing this, this loud boom, boom sound, and then they were like, what is that thing pounding on the doors? And that's how we found out about the trench, because then they're thinking that this troll Kong is pounding on the doors on the other side. And Toriko starts going and doing this, and they're like, what, they turn around, what the hell? And he explains, he goes, it's what they're doing, it's what the troll Kongs are doing. It's, apes, they beat their chest or whatever, as like an intimidation, intimidation factor that they use to scare off other potential, predators or people that would want, animals that would want to fight. And so it's basically an intimidation thing that they're doing. And Komatsu had also mentioned earlier in the chapter, he had said, how do we even know, Toriko, that we're going to get in there and the troll Kongs haven't eaten all the fruit of the rainbow tree, the rainbow fruit. And Toriko says, well, they're not vegetarians. They're obviously meat eaters, and that's why they made their nest by the rainbow fruit tree. Or plant or what have you, because then all any animals that come that are kind of drawn to that scent of the fruit, they can go and that's easy prey for them, right? And Komatsu's like, yeah, but who would go to that anyway? It doesn't make any sense, right? And they explain that it's basically just like instinct. The animals, even if they know that there's danger, if they go and they get a scent of something, and it's like an instinctual, I need to have that. It's it's just that type of thing. It's like a drug, I guess. So it's kind of neat how they explain the whole thing, And so anyway, so then Toriko goes and he's like, oh, okay. So it has to be clear, the area has to be clear by the time the gate opens. Okay, I get it, right? And he goes and he's just like, yeah, we're going to show them the intimidation factor. Just picture him being like the Incredible Hulk, where he's just like, oh, and his shirt rips off because he's getting bigger and everything. Because all of a sudden Toriko goes and he's drawn and looks like he's like 3 times the size, right? And he goes and he goes and he comes at the wall, right? Not the gate, the wall next to the gate. And he's like, triple spike punch. And he's just like, boom, 1. And they show him, he's this small little thing over here. And then they show the area that he hit with that first punch. And it's like, it's not completely busted through this wall, but it's like a 20 by 20 foot area. It looks like a goddamn missile hit, right? And then he goes and he explains, briefly about this punch, and the reason the triple spike punch is so powerful, it's like pounding a nail in 3 times, because he hits it in the exact same spot successively harder. So, it's just boom, 2, and then boom, 3, and when he hits it the 3rd time, it just explodes right through, And this wall looks like it was, 10, 12 foot thick of solid concrete, probably reinforced with rebar inside and everything else. I don't know the structural integrity, but I know that this is one bad mamma jamma, man, if he is punching through walls. So it's definitely fun and entertaining, to go and to see someone like this. And I don't even know what his full strengths are and everything else yet. I just know that, he's taking everything out like it's nothing. So he gets in there. And winds up, walking in, and then he's kind of like thinking to himself, he's like, where's the troll Kong, And he's like, I don't smell. And remember, he has that acute sense of smell, so he's talking about how he doesn't smell like the certain type of pheromone or whatever that'll be given off if something goes and runs, like in fear. So he knows that he didn't chase it off, and he's like thinking, what the hell's going on here? This doesn't seem right. Then he goes and he's like, I'll bet you it wasn't, that was just like a scout that was sent to kind of scout me out and see what was going on and everything else. And kind of like the intimidation factor thing, maybe to kind of gauge what they were going to be up against. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, but I smell something. It smells reptilian and this and that. And Komatsu comes in and is like, geez, you didn't need to destroy all that. And all of a sudden Toriko's like, no, get back. It's an ambush, right? And all of a sudden in the last panel of last page of the chapter, we get all these snakes coming on him, and he's like, venomous snakes. So the Troll Kongs were able to, basically set a trap. I mean, I shouldn't say basically. They did. They set a trap for him. They ambushed Toriko knowing that he was coming, or knowing that something was coming for them, I guess. So definitely very cool stuff. My chapter question here is, what do you think so far of what they've revealed of Toriko's powers? Certainly the different things that I've seen so far are very cool to me, and I'm sure that that's not the full extent of it. But what are your thoughts on Toriko's powers that we have seen and have been revealed thus far? Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below, and feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button, if you should think that I deserve it. It always helps, and I don't really know how, but it does. That's what I'm supposed to say. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. We look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
I think what this big crazed 4-arm monkey is trying to say is if you don't want me to throw shit at you, you better subscribe, brothers and sisters.